Good evening. I was just with you like a few minutes ago on Soul School. For those of you that stayed with us for the second hour for a world awakening, thanks for hanging with us. For those that are just tuning in, thanks for coming. And when you have a chance, based on how receptive you are to the conversation that we'll be having tonight, feel free to go back in the archives and watch Soul School because it really is kind of an hour-long preface to this conversation. A couple of days ago, after the hearing in DC on the potential for extraterrestrial life, this isn't potential energy; it's kinetic energy. That aside, we'll discuss that. But I called a very dear friend of mine, and I said to him, you know, I know just about everybody, I think, that's working in the field of UFO research, ufology, for lack of a better term, the new nomenclature. And like UAP, you know, let's hijack UFOs and change it and maybe give it a little whitewash, a little facelift. Uh, did that sound as sarcastic as I meant it to be? Probably. Okay, so the point that I was making, oh God, and I really did have one. Oh, yes. The thing that I did was I called this gentleman and I said, you know, I know pretty much everybody in this field I've worked with for many years now. And there's only one person that I really want to talk with about this hearing today. It was on Wednesday. I called him. And he thought I was going to ask him for the number of someone that he'd had on his show that I wanted to have this conversation with, not understanding that I wanted to have the conversation with him. Ken DeCosta is one of the brightest stars in the firmament. He is so well educated, so well spoken, so put together in terms of his scientific and pragmatic approach to all things considered paranormal, supernatural, or not of this world. There's nobody that I consider more intellectually sound and yet more open because he knows. And it's because he knows and because we've had like experiences that I wanted to share this hour with him tonight. So without further ado, Bill, please bring in Mr. Ken DeCosta, the founder of Rise Up Paranormal, which is now, I believe, in all 6 New England states. Brady, yes, he is.
I am in danger of becoming overexposed. Doing a podcast last night. Here I am again. Are you people tired of me yet?
No, let me answer for them. No.
Well, that's kind of you. How are you? Hey, thank you for having me on tonight. I know that we're going to get into the weeds on this, and
yes,
I'm looking forward to it.
Well, the first thing we started to on the phone, and there was a part of me that wanted to put on the brakes in the same way that Ben Hansen today said we might need to apply the brakes right now. And you know, the more I see now, look at all the love you're getting. Look at all the love you're getting on the bottom of the screen.
Thank you.
And I wanted to, you know, get your take on all of this. I wanted to share my opinions, but more so, you know, I just spent an hour talking about this in Soul School. So why don't you run with it, and I'll just interject where it seems appropriate, because I think that from what I gleaned in our brief conversation, you had some very erudite thoughts about this.
Yeah, and I didn't want to share those with you because, you know, I thought tonight would be a better night to do it. I know we're going to get into the minutiae of things. I'll start with 2 takeaways. The first takeaway that I have is I thought that this hearing was not geared toward people like you and I.
Right.
Or the people in the ufology community and those who have been interested in this subject for a very long time. I think it was a powerful introduction to people who may be on the bubble or don't have an opinion one way or the other.
Mhm.
Not people that have studied this and been involved in this for decades. My second takeaway on this is we need more Ryan Graves and David Fravers
Yes, we do.
and a bit less of David Grush.
Yeah, I know he's intense. He's really intense. And the other two were, I wouldn't say more docile, but they were more subdued. They were, I think, more palpable for people in terms of the message that they were putting out. Rush is, uh, there's an energy, I think, that comes to him naturally. I think that it does because I've watched him now for a couple of hours between his big interview on News Nation and then the hearings. So it seems like it's just naturally him, but he's really intense, and the other two were a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that the other two, the difference is, in a nutshell, they have both bore witness to these things.
Yes.
Commander Fravor, Lieutenant Graves have seen these things. Lieutenant Graves, Ryan Graves, said that he saw these things in an F-18 every day
Every
for a
day.
year. Commander Fravor engaged one,
Yes.
and he gave eyewitness testimony as to what he saw. So much so when he returned back to the Nimitz, another crew went up.
Right.
And this is where we saw the videos
Right.
in 2017
Mm-hmm.
of what they tracked. They have seen radar data. They've engaged with these things. They describe them to a T.
Yeah.
David Grush, in my opinion, is still a victim of the mechanisms that are there, whether it's AOC, Jared Moskowitz, Tim Burchett, whomever it was. There were far too many. If we get in a skiff, I'll tell you after the meeting.
Yep.
I can't disclose this to the public.
Yep.
He gave more information in his News Nation interview
He did than he did in Congress.
than
Yeah.
he did then. Now, for someone who doesn't have firsthand,
And knowledge.
okay, this is secondhand, sometimes third hand, sometimes fourth hand. My concern, and I know that they were threatened, Pentagon, with the Holman rule, which, if no one's familiar with that, basically Congress can either cut funding, modify funding, suspend the head of an agency, dismiss the head of an agency, or terminate the agency entirely, nuclear option. So that's a bold threat to make to the Pentagon. My concern, Annie, and you can address this, is let's say, for the sake of argument, that the Pentagon comes clean. They get a skiff, they get the witnesses that he's supposed to provide to them off screen, because there was a lot of that. AOC, for example, well, who do I talk to? Where do I go? I'll be happy to tell you afterwards. So let's say they get everything they want, which they probably won't. But let's say the Pentagon comes clean. Yep, we have exotic craft. We've had them for decades. We had bodies. We have all that stuff. All of what we're telling you is above top secret, which then prohibits anyone from Congress to going public unless they go completely rogue.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can be the next to be indicted for exposing classified information.
Right.
So I have a concern about that. It's great if they get to know, but I'm afraid we're spinning our wheels a little bit. There's a comment from Matt, that's not fully accurate. He has firsthand experience with classified documents and photos. Um, but they're not taken by him.
Right.
Okay. Um, so they're a little bit different. It's a little bit different thing.
Well, when they were discussing having 30 or more pilots that were willing to talk but were fearful to
Yeah.
speak out, that speaks volumes about the common denominator between UFO, UAP being fear based, being in a rudimentary, in a very base way, fearful of what they might do, why they are here, what's their ulterior motive, blah, 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 all the same stuff.
Right.
And then you've also got the people who have had experiences or have, maybe secondhand or third-hand knowledge from reliable sources that want to share because they realize the significance of the information, and they're afraid. So your common denominator here is fear, and we have got to ascend beyond fear to get the information that we need, if not from the military establishment, from members of the military that have had experiences that they are willing to share, and
Yeah.
for them not to be penalized, chastised. Basically, there goes your pension, there goes your family, there go, no, the days of retribution need to be over,
Yeah.
over. And I think that the military does want to why do we spend so much money, time, energy on something that doesn't exist? And yet they're still saying, even as of Wednesday, we have no proof of the existence of any of this.
Yeah. I
That's the
mean,
bottom line.
when we talk about the military, I think you're referring to the rank and file members.
Yes,
We're not talking to the industrial complex
right, exactly.
or the contractors with a lot at stake here.
Right.
I think the rank and file has no problem with it. A guy like David Fravor, who's retired, come get me. I'm going to tell you what I see, and he's done it on Fox, CNN, Joe Rogan. He's made the rounds. This was the first time he told the story, and his story was absolutely consistent with
Absolutely.
everything that he said, and he expounded a little more on it.
Yes.
I think that the hang up with this is the only thing that's going to, and I said this to you on the phone, the only thing that makes this better is daylight, sunlight.
Yeah.
We have known in the past from people like Stanton Friedman, Jesse Marcel, people at the hospital in Roswell, we've known for decades that we recovered bodies. Okay, nobody can confirm that. We know that there were downed spacecraft from the testimony of these people who knew. Well, we've known that or suspected it for decades. There are a lot of things in there that I would not call confirmation of those things. They were in support of those things, which is important. But we learned what's going on in as much as appropriations are moved around.
Mm-hmm.
To the tune of billions and billions of dollars. AOC got to that. It's like, where does this money go? They put it wherever they want.
Where does it go? How is it funneled there?
Right.
And are any rules broken in terms of appropriations in the shuffling off to these? My sister said to me, it's a couple of years ago. She said, "What the hell happened to NASA? Why is everything private now, and everything that's taking off from Cape Canaveral is SpaceX, and it's this and it's that, whatever happened to NASA?" I said, "Oh honey, NASA's still absolutely very much around and very deeply into all kinds of different things, including extraterrestrials." And she said, "Well, they're charging money to go up in these spaceships now." I said, "Well, if I had it, I'd go up in a heartbeat." She says, "Oh, I would never do that." She said, "You just want to go up to see your little friends." And my response to her was, "I don't have to go to them. They come to me, and they're not that little."
Right.
At which point she pretty much just stormed out of the room and didn't want to continue that conversation because it frightens her. It does. I mean, Christine, you've met her, and she's a little freaked out about it. Doesn't want to discuss it. And if there's anybody, especially growing up the way that we did, we uh, should be like more open than most to the possibilities that exist in the reality of our world and beyond our world. She doesn't want to, and
Well,
that's part of the reason why I think, there are even some very well educated, very articulate, very academically sound individuals that want no part of this subject. Just
yeah, I
dismiss it
mean,
out of hand.
when you get defense contractors and corporations involved in this, they pour their billions of dollars in because they have an agenda as well.
Yes.
But nobody from the Defense Department comes to us and said, well, Bob Bigelow just put $3 billion in this, so I guess that's $3 billion you don't have to give us. Not only do you still have to maintain the status quo, we want another $3 billion heaped on top of it.
Yeah.
So the question is, where is that money going? Is it going to our military? Is it going to R&D? Is it going to the men and women on the front line for armor, protection, whatever the systems are? And when corporations get involved in that, and you can see this from, if you took a roster of everybody who's worked in administrations down through the ages, find out what they're doing now. Wikipedia those guys
Yeah.
and gals. You're going to find a great deal of them are consultants for defense contractors now,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where the money is. And that's where the development is. This is why SpaceX wants to go to the moon, because everybody wants to be the first to do that. Because on the military side, how do we take this technology and weaponize it?
Right.
On the corporate side, how do we take this money and financially benefit from it?
Right.
So the wrong people are running all of this now. So, I mean, that's
Money
where my
is
concerns lie with disclosure.
Yeah. Yeah. Money is running this now.
Yeah.
And it's big money, and a lot of it is private money, and a lot of it is very the whole clandestine nature around this subject. I often say, I said a little while ago in the show, I am not a conspiracy theorist. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a conspiracy to keep silent
Mm-hmm.
about the most important subject that humanity has ever faced, ever. And a handful of people that have decided that humanity's not ready for it. And that includes them, because to disclose fully would mean that all the people, not just in the United States, but everybody in the world, would know that there are off world beings that have more sophisticated technology, that are more powerful than we are. How can you be the most powerful on Earth if there's something from beyond Earth that is capable of deactivating your nukes? Okay,
Yeah.
is capable of outrunning you at any airspeed or land speed, that has propulsion systems that seem virtually invisible, that leave no trace of themselves as these vessels maneuver in ways which defy the laws of physics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then suddenly maybe your military doesn't seem quite so powerful, ours or anyone else's. And so I think that the intrinsic power structure which exists, and what Eisenhower described as the military industrial complex, the
Yeah.
establishment, as it were, must maintain their at least air of authority. And that's why the messages that I have been getting for years and years, you and I have talked about this on a number of occasions. The messages that I complain about, I feel conflicted by, I tend to push back on, and have ultimately come to accept is forgive them. They're doing this for a reason. Don't hate them for what they're doing. You be the point of disclosure.
Right.
You,
Well, I think
me,
the
us.
we used to think, or we were told or assume that we can't have disclosure because we don't want the American public to know that there is something out there that dwarfs our military.
Right.
The strongest in the world, the second strongest in the world, the third strongest in the world.
Yeah,
I mean, we've seen that with Russia. They've been exposed.
they have.
They have been exposed.
They're
Okay, so
crawling. Yeah.
you know that all being said, we already know now that we have no shot. David Fravor said that. It's like we got no shot. If there's anything malevolent here, and
Right.
according to David Grush, there have been incidents where they have encountered malevolent pilots. I want to hear more about that, but I doubt we will. We okay, so that's off the table. We know that we have no shot, but there's nothing that really suggests, at this point anyway, that it's an existential threat
Right.
to this point. In terms of disclosure, I hope you're right that everybody's ready for it. Ronald Reagan said many, many years ago, if the world was faced with an existential threat from an alien race, that you would see people band together and nations would come together. You saw what happened when we had an existential threat in 2020
Yeah.
with a pandemic. That didn't go well
It did not.
because the first thing it was what? It yeah, it was religion, politics, and money. The three things that we're worried about.
Yeah.
Who can come up with the most money? Who can get there first? How
Right.
can we politicize this
Right.
to our advantage? And religion, then it came down to my faith, my beliefs, vaccine, no vaccine, vax, anti vax.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope we're ready.
Chinese, it came from their lab. Yeah. So on
I,
and
I
so.
hope we're ready. Not so much even for an existential threat. This is why I hope that at this point, the only way they're going to get this done, set one of those things down in Times Square. You're going to have to do it because I don't trust anything beyond. There was good information during the hearing, and some of the things that we thought were possible have been supported. Now we need to see how far this is going to go because this skiff deal, in closed session, an executive session, off camera, and everything. I was a little disappointed by that. I don't know what I expected, Annie. Maybe I expected my expectations were higher. That I've watched
Mine
too
were
many. I've
exceedingly
watched,
low.
yeah, I've watched too
So
many Jack
I
Ryan
was
movies.
pleasantly surprised because mine were exceedingly low.
Yeah, I've watched too many Jack Ryan movies where someone pounds the table, "You sir," pointing at the president, and they
Right.
come and arrest him and take him away. So maybe I'm a victim of that. But David Grush made some remarkable claims, and I know there were witnesses who pulled out at the
Mm-hmm.
very last minute.
Very last minute.
That
Fearful.
tells you something.
Uh-huh.
But if we're going to get into reporting these things, the bottom line is if we take the extraterrestrial stuff off the table, the immediate concern should be apparently these things in the air are a threat to our military and commercial pilots.
Well, I don't see where us having collisions. That I find that not only implausible, I find it ridiculous because just because they follow our aviation vehicles around doesn't mean they're going to uh, have any kind of a collision with them. We're the ones that run into each other's planes taking off and landing in our own airports because they're not, there's too much traffic, and not everybody's got their eye on the radar the way they should all of the time. And we've had so many close calls just in the last year, now that we're through the worst of perceived COVID and back up, in the friendly skies. We're not running into anything other than flocks of birds, which is always very unfortunate and can be very dangerous. Ask Sully.
Well, our
However, we're not running because, and why would we think that when they can outrun us? When they can literally come up. I have got video film footage leaning into Amy Bruni's lap, basically crushing the woman after I had just gotten a message. Yeah, ask John Tenney about this. He's seen this video too. When I had just gotten a message to take my phone and put it up and take a picture out the window. And what I got back, even though it was set on picture, and I said, excuse me, Amy, I got to take a picture. I have to, and then I looked at it, and it was a video. It was a video of a vessel that came right up to the side of the plane, of the window that we were both sharing, and then took off in a split second, was gone. And it was a perfect white triangle that looked like the icon on my phone,
mm,
the upside down icon on my phone. That thing, I can't make it bigger, but you know what I'm talking. That's what it looked
yeah,
like a radio signal, or I don't even know the vernacular to explain this, but that's what it was, and I've got that, and we live in a day and age where I could put that out into the world, and people from right within our own community would tear it apart and say, even though Amy's sitting right there, you could say, okay, who photoshopped this? How about no one did? How about I was told to pick up my friggin' camera, I did it, and this is what happened. You
yeah.
know,
I think I'm thinking. Well, Ryan Graves said one came within 50 feet of a military jet.
yes,
That's close up in the air.
that is, and they're
If
not going to
someone
run into them.
if someone is coming directly at my car and I know who they are and it says, "Don't worry about it. They're a good driver. They'll swerve at the last minute." But the other thing I've heard is how our systems go down on these planes.
Right.
Radar goes down. They
Everything does.
jam communication.
It does
Uh,
skew the
cockpit.
communications.
That's dangerous. That is dangerous. It may be totally unintentional, but that's a residual effect. When you fly over a military base, as they did decades ago, and all our missiles go offline,
Hmm.
and the possibility someone is going to misinterpret that as foreign aggression,
That's what
then
becomes
again, it may
dangerous.
be totally unintentional, but there have been
I do
instances.
believe it's inadvertent. I do, and I think that
Well,
if we tell them, look, you're messing our stuff up. Can't we? We need to be able to see what's going on in our cockpit. Please
right.
don't get too close.
Human lives are on the
Or at
line
risk.
when it comes to that. Especially with the systems now in our jets, where even commercial jets can essentially fly themselves, and there's enough room for human error, and a lot of times that happens, sadly and tragically. But I would still like to know who are these things that flying at between 20 and 40,000 feet, because they are in the paths of commercial and military jetliners. There are a lot of different ways you can be curious about things, but you don't necessarily, if that's a high intelligence, then you
Then they
can't
are
you
keenly aware.
you can't play chicken
No, no,
with.
and I don't think that's what was happening with the Nimitz. You know what I think was happening with the Nimitz was that they were showing off. To me, all the film video that I saw of the Nimitz, and I think everything that got put out. I think Looks to me, the vibe I got off of it was that they were just playful and just showing off, and we're here and look what we can do. I that was the whole vibe that I got from that. There was nothing threatening at all in any of the film footage. They were just making their presence known in a remarkable way. And I do believe that was 2010 when that happened, right off the coast of San
Um,
Diego.
2004.
Oh, 4, that's right. But
Actually,
then
yeah.
again in 2010.
It
Uh,
took that long, yeah.
and okay, so now, and so it was what, 2017 when we
2017 is
saw
when we
any
got the
film
footage.
footage of it,
Right.
going back all the way to '04.
Hmm.
So if that's going to be, the basic mathematical equation they're using, what do they know now that we're not going to find out too until 2035?
Right. Right. I think you're going to get a lot more reports now because radars and sensitive detecting equipment has been recalibrated now
Hmm.
because of the incidents
Balloons.
last year when things were being shot down.
Yeah.
So you'll see a lot more reports. I really just want to. There are two things that bother me about this. One is the mechanism in place or lack of a mechanism in place for systemic reporting
Hmm.
because you still have the stigma. I was watching a guy, a political analyst today, who decided to talk about this story because it is a congressional story. And his attitude is, wow, there was some wild things being said. But he included Graves and Fravor in that, which I thought was patently unfair.
Hmm.
Patently unfair. Well, okay. David Grush has made a lot of remarkable claims. Yes, he has. The other guys did not. The other guys are giving you eyewitness testimony. They were in a damn jet
Yeah.
and saw these things on radar and visually. There's nothing crazy about what they're saying. So that's a concern. And the other thing is now, and I had talked about this at a MUFON meeting recently, in that, so now they have a new organization. ATIP is gone. Lou Elizondo's gone. That whole crew's gone. But they're only going to examine cases from a certain point where our radar now is on the level that it is, our detection systems,
No.
but we didn't have them in the 40s, 50s, 60s. That's ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Someone had asked, oh my God, someone had asked, there was a different hearing 10 years, 15 years ago. You know the one I'm talking
I
about.
do. I do. And I know just about everyone that testified at
Right.
that hearing.
Someone asked one of the witnesses, no, I'm sorry, one of the witnesses was talking about Malmstrom Air Force Base,
Right.
right? Famous sighting.
Very famous.
Congressman, absolutely no idea. Explain it to me like I'm 5. What's Malmstrom? So we're going to dismiss all of those J. Allen Hynek, Stanton Friedman, all of the rest of these people, NICAP, MUFON, all the civilian agencies, because just like when someone reports a ghost sighting from 1880,
Yeah.
in our arrogance, we say, oh, what did they know back then? So you dismiss this whole body of testimony and evidence, some of them by pilots, going back to World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And we're just going to worry about what's in our skies now because we're much smarter than they were back then. I don't like it. I don't like it. You have to look at the entire body of evidence.
Well, yeah, it's like keeping 20% of a strand of DNA and calling the other 80% junk DNA. When
Right.
that's your whole history, that's your whole background, that's, what you're made of, where you come from, and who your ancestors are. It's the same principle. You're
Right.
throwing out the baby with the bathwater by doing it we need to go back as far as the sightings will take us
Yep.
before people even had the language, before there was ever such a thing as a flying saucer. There are reports going back in history, millennium, that of flying machines in the sky, but people didn't have the words for that. And but they drew them on cave walls. And I mean,
Mhm.
this is not new news. And for us to be the hubris to say, well, now that our radar can pick up X and Y and Z,
Yeah.
what I experienced in the early 70s was seen on
Yeah,
radar.
it doesn't count.
It doesn't count. It changed my life. It changed the life of tens of thousands of people who had a direct encounter with it. And it was one of the most major events that had ever happened. It happened on two continents, for Christ's sake. It not only happened on the East Coast of the Americas, North America all the way down to Maryland, and then a scan of Western Europe, and then disappears up over the Arctic Circle, just like that.
Right. I
Okay, we
think
had radar. It was captured on radar. That's going to be dismissed because the radar was not sophisticated enough.
radar
No,
not sophisticated enough, so
no,
all of these reports, let's forget the civilian reports. You're dismissing
the military.
Andrews Air Force Base, Malmstrom Air Force Base, Rendlesham Forest, all of these military installation, a disproportionate amount of which housed nuclear capabilities.
Hmm.
Okay. And I thought, and to me, it's like, let me add them. That was my attitude because I thought, probably through no fault of their own, because they're worried about other things. But I think a lot of the people who were doing the questioning, the representatives, were woefully unprepared to
Well,
ask the right questions.
questions. Yeah.
The right questions. You can't, I mean, some immediately, to the detriment of the hearing, went to the extraterrestrial thing. My attitude is we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Hmm.
Right now, let's talk about the existential threat to pilots and, 250 souls in a commercial aircraft.
Hmm.
What are these things? If they know or have more information on these things, then one or two things have to happen. Tell us so we have a better understanding. And if you won't tell us, then please take the steps to make everybody safer who's in the air. Let these men and David Fravor's wingman, it was a misnomer. It wasn't a wingman, it was a wing woman.
Yeah.
She was second in command of the Black Aces, which the Black Aces are no joke. These are no joke squadron. And they spoke to her today. I caught a 6 or 8 minute excerpt, and I've heard her tell her story
So
before.
yep.
And that was no joke for those
Yeah.
people. They weren't armed. It was a training exercise, and um, then they have to get to the point. You have to treat it like anything else. If you have witnessed something, a terrorist threat, you're going to report that.
Right. Of course.
I'm not calling these terrorists, of course, but I'm saying it falls along the same line. If you see
Right.
something, say
Say
something.
something. Yep. Alex Dietrich. Bill put up her name, Alex Dietrich.
Alex Dietrich. Thank you. Thank you, Bill. I wanted to make sure she gets that recognition because, my wingman is like, no, a damn fine pilot in her own right.
Yeah.
So I guess the thing is now, if they start to get into the money part of it, and all the rest of the salacious stuff, Annie, I know that there have been people murdered. I'll tell you later. Where does the line go that if these things can be documented, I have to report a murder? I have to report threats. I have to report
Right.
Under the Whistleblowers Act, you can't touch these people. I know he signed an NDA. I understood all of that stuff, but I'm still waiting. I don't know. I hope someone goes rogue or this kind of stuff is leaked, because I think that's the only way you're going to get whatever comes out of those meetings. We can't get a skiff. What do you mean you can't get a skiff? What are we sending you to Congress for? Just to do selfies and TikTok videos and like go do something that matters to people. Instead, gas stoves, we've had 3 hearings
Yeah.
on this phenomenon. Who knows if there's going to be another one?
No, I think that there are going to be other ones, and I think that there's forward momentum now that didn't exist to this extent even a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I also know that during the pandemic, when so many millions of people were, basically forced to shelter in place, people started bird watching a whole lot more, among other things. And another thing that they started doing was watching the sky and taking walks in the park. Not only getting grounded and reacclimated, reacquainted with Earth, but also looking up. And
Right.
and there was a real uptick in sightings over a very brief period, just a couple of years,
Mhm.
where people were less uh, less aspersions were cast, and more people felt more comfortable sharing their encounters in a wide variety of ways, and particularly online, because how did we communicate with each other for, basically 2+ years was predominantly online. And so people that were home and had some time on their hands, thank God the internet did not crash, started looking around for information, finding little shows like mine, and you know, uh, searching for answers of things that they might have encountered, or things that they witnessed. That the only plausible explanation seemed to be that it was a UFO, um, and so this is happening in fits and starts. When I had Stephen Bassett on a few months ago, he is the one that said to me, think about this a little differently. And I'll just paraphrase what he said because we're getting short on time. I don't know how this happened, but he said to me, um, there's a plane crash and some people survive, and they've exhausted all of their options for nourishment, and they're living off of, leaves and berries and sticks and twigs, and all of a sudden here comes the helicopter, and instead of, sharing a single loaf of bread where they're all getting a few crumbs just to have some sustenance, here comes this rescue helicopter with all of this food. And the few survivors literally gorge themselves and die because they've eaten themselves to death. And
Mhm.
there are those of us out there that are so hungry for information, for more information. I am, um, I'm quite sure that there are those among us that would overindulge and have their minds kind of blown, and
Yeah.
would not will not be able to digest what came at them all at once.
Right.
And so what Stephen Bassett basically said is spoon feeding the babies with pablum, what I've been saying for years. But that was my objection, is that we are being spoon fed like babies for years, for decades, a little bit here, a little bit there, just the littlest bit. And like I said, when I made my video on December 17th, uh, or in December of 2017, when the New York Times broke the story about the Nimitz, which was not broken, that was inserted into mainstream media deliberately, thoughtfully, and not without some provocation, but that was all planned. They didn't just one day walk into the office at the Pentagon and say, let's tell the whole world about what we discovered on the Nimitz today. Here, give it to the New York Times and let them write a story. Oh no. All of that was planned. All of that was done with deliberate intent, and there was, there were many, many people involved with the decision making around that. And so when I made my video, I said, okay, so basically what we got today, folks, was a snowflake on the tip of an iceberg the size of Antarctica. That's
Right.
what we got. And they're like,
Right.
look here at this little snowflake. Don't look over there. Look here at this snowflake. Look what we've given you. And personally, this pisses me off. This is, I find, incredibly insulting, like the 16 great minds they put together and then offered them the unclassified material. Had I been one of the people sitting at that table, I would have had to stand up and say, this is an all or nothing proposition. If I don't have the proper clearance, get it for me and then show me everything, or I'm out of here because my time's more valuable than this. My intellectual integrity is not going to be challenged in this way.
Right.
And I wish that all of them had done that, because to show them the declassified material is absolutely repulsive and insulting.
I
Stuff
am
we get on the internet ourselves. I mean, I'm just totally over this bullshit. I really am. So it's got to be us, Ken. It's got to be us telling our stories.
I am actually looking for excuse me, I can't find it. We don't have that much time left. I am hoping that David Grush is not, and I can't think of the gentleman's name, but we all know who Richard Doty was.
Yeah.
He was a disinformation officer
Yes, he was.
who
Yes,
was
he was.
feeding this man who was operating a ham radio and picking up coded signals from a base, and they found out about it. And he would go and tell the guy, listen, yeah, we have extraterrestrial spacecraft, things like that, and we're not going to tell people, but I'll tell you exactly what we need to know. And this went on for years till
Years.
eventually the man went insane, lost his job and everything. Now, I would like to think that David Grush, being on the inside, is smarter than that. But I'm hoping it's not one of those things where someone is being fed disinformation
I know.
about
I
these
don't
things.
think so. I don't think so.
I
Because
don't think so either, but if we can put that off to the side, then you can move. And again, this is from someone. I've studied all of the, I know the good, the bad, and the ugly
yeah,
about
yeah.
this, from
Me
the
too. Going
Majestic
back
12 documents
50
to all of
years.
this stuff. And I'm hoping that people just stay objective with this, because you made, I think, a great point. When you're so hungry for information, this is when you're at your most vulnerable.
That's right.
So you need to keep that objectivity in mind, and you
Yeah.
you really need to. I need to be shown,
Hmm.
and I completely believe what Ryan Graves and David Fravor are telling us.
Yes, I do
And
too. Because look
the
what they have put on the line to do
yes,
so.
and I think that the biggest service they're doing is essentially they are representing other pilots
Right.
who are having these encounters and engaging these things, and sometimes getting the shit scared out of them by, I mean, a sphere with a gray cube inside of it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's got to scare the hell out of you.
sure.
I don't care how many years you've been up in the air. So I like the idea that hopefully, as they keep bringing this and they keep coming with this, that they represent the pilots who are seeing these things and are patriots and did swear an oath to the Constitution to protect and defend, against foreign and domestic or even alien, um, that they will report these things because that, I think, in the grassroots is what's going to push this forward. I will believe when I see that the Pentagon, the DOD, and Congress is forthcoming on this. I don't think we have any idea what's at stake here or what they're keeping. Cover up? Yes, of course. Yes, there's a cover up.
It's
We
a
can take that off
conspiracy
the table.
of
That's
silence. It is the truth embargo.
yeah.
It's the truth embargo. And, we need to call it for what it is, just the same way that Stephen Bassett has worked in Washington for years and years.
Mhm.
He's the only lobbyist on behalf of extraterrestrials in Washington, and he's made great headway over the years. He's a remarkable man. And Ken, I so appreciate having this conversation with you. We only have a few minutes left. Bill wants you to stay on after the show. He's got some news for you
Oh, boy.
that you need to know. In fact, I know he's got more than one thing to tell you.
Oh, boy.
So, we can be secretive
See,
too.
this is what I'm talking about. All you people in chat, this is executive session now. We can't
Right.
disclose this.
We're going to our skiff.
That's right. I'm
Um,
going to skiff.
yeah, we're going to our skiff. Off we skiff into the sunset. Um,
Mhm.
so, I appreciate very much you spending this time with me because
Love it.
this is just too important for us not to discuss in depth. And we
Yeah.
will do this again and again. And as things transpire, I want to revisit this with you. And please don't ever tell George that I said that he could very well be right about people not being ready for this. Um,
Okay.
don't tell him that I said that, okay?
Well, he was in chat. You can tell him yourself.
Oh,
Yeah, you got issues now.
I
That's not gonna go
long-standing
away.
issues with George on this subject, yes. But Bill,
Not gonna go away.
thank you for
Very welcome. Thank you.
putting this show together for us tonight. My love to George, my love to everybody that joined us. Don't be afraid to talk about this. Think about it and then talk about it
Yeah.
because I think there are only two important questions that humanity grapples with. And one is there something beyond our mortal existence? Is there some kind of life after death? And are we alone in the universe? And one supersedes the other. It's kind of like a superseding indictment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Noble pursuit.
Yeah, a noble pursuit. And so we're not wasting our lives, Ken. We're moving forward, hopefully, into the future and a new understanding and cracking our 3D shell and coming out into a limitless universe teeming with life. And
Mhm.
so it is. And on that happy note, I adore you. Didn't I just see you a few days ago? I'm pretty sure I did. And
Yeah.
and we will be in touch soon. And if you ever need me to come on and blah 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 about this on one of your shows, call me.
Maybe we'll do it in a couple of weeks on that. Just another paranormal podcast. I just invented something, and you know,
It's lovely. I'm
I'm
there.
bored. I need things to do. But Annie, thank you so much for having me tonight. This has been great.
You're very welcome. And to all of you who are watching, remember to be the beacon, to be the light that you seek, to be the change you wish to see in the world. I love you all.